Welcome to Tally Talks, a podcast to ramble about Tally Hall. I'm your host, Emma, and today's episode is sponsored by the Kazoo Company. I'm joined by Talking Kote, and today we're going to be talking about the creativity of Tally Hall.
Yes, hello, hello. I am Talking Kote, and I like to think of myself as somewhat of a musician, and I've been very inspired by Tally Hall over the past couple of years, so it's an honor to be here.
Yippee! Yeah, in your case, like, what is something that maybe you feel like you know about Tally Hall that maybe the average person or average listener might not know just from being a fan of Tally Hall?
Yeah, so I've spent a lot of time over the past, I'd say maybe year and a half listening to Tally Hall and researching Tally Hall, and it's been, a lot of fun. And let me think here. One thing that always just blows my mind is how well the community can be brought together. And I don't know how many people know that listen to the band, but there is such a thriving community of many fans, even in rural Maine where I'm from. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and I feel like too, just the just sheer amount of like collaboration that goes on, because like there've been all of these different tribute albums, but I feel like even outside of that, there's so many people who are just like willing to work together on making different covers and things. Do you definitely get like that vibe too?
I totally do, for sure.
Do you have any like favorite Tally Hall covers off of the top of your head?
Um, I have a friend who's a very big fan of Johnny Jash, and I that at first was kind of abrasive to my more like happy eccentric kind of Tally Hall palette. But when I was given the chance to give Johnny Jash a chance, that really opened my mind to that side of it, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I think those ones are really fun too because then it's like taking a spin on kind of what you expect already. And it's like building its own story too
Yeah,
in all of the songs. So I think it's really creative. Definitely not everyone's cup of tea because it takes a little bit of getting used to, but yeah, I also really enjoy what I have heard of Charney Jash. I still
yeah,
have much more to listen to, but what I do know.
yeah.
How did you first become a Tally Hall fan?
That's a funny story. So, yeah, my first connection, I guess you could say, to Tally Hall was around 2020. I was on the internet a lot, as a lot of people were, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And I found out about Lemon Demon and Neil Cicierega. So I didn't get really obsessed with him until more recently, but at that point, I knew some of the stuff off of Spirit Phone, and I really liked it because it reminded me of some like 1980s kind of synth pop, which was something I was really into at the time. And I remembered watching the like Harry Potter Puppet Pals when I was younger and stuff like that.
Oh
So
yes.
I was familiar with this stuff. And a couple years ago, one of your one of the people you've actually had on the podcast and my longtime friend, Supper Toad Productions, um, he brought me a cassette of Marvin's Marvelous Mechanical Museum and told me it was somewhat like Lemon Demon. So I gave it a chance and I was just baffled. I was blown away because up until that point, I hadn't really listened to anything modern, quote unquote. I was more had a background of, stuff from the 70s and 80s and 90s because of my parents. And it kind of just made me realize that just because something was made in the last 20 years doesn't mean it is something that I can't enjoy. And it kind of opened my mind. So after that, I actually happened to get a cold, which gave me some time to stay home. And I watched the 3 hour documentary on YouTube about Telly Hall. And I learned so much in so little amount of time that it just fueled a obsession. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I found out about them. And now they've helped me get into this beautiful community and listen to other artists such as Will Wood. And it's just inspired me to become a better musician. So
That's awesome. Like Yeah, I remember when the 3-hour documentary came out. It's so thorough, and yet it only feels like the tip of the iceberg.
Exactly. Yeah.
Did you end up like watching stuff like the internet show after that at all?
Oh yeah. I remember when I found out about the internet show and brought it to my friends, and it was like the funniest thing we had seen in so long, and we loved it.
It's pretty great. It's just all like it partially feels like you're watching someone's stream of consciousness almost, but then also it's just like it's very entertaining.
It is.
Like they were I always feel like they were just ahead of their time, which is why they're
Yes.
so popular now.
Yeah. Very Monty Python-esque.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And even yeah, I don't know. It's just I've definitely seen Death Request over and over so many
That
times.
I stand by that episode. It's awesome.
It is something too where it's like because it has like a vague plot. I mean, all of them kind of have some sort of vague plot, but that's the most one where it's like it's structured, and then
Yeah.
it's also almost like structured as a parody of just like television in general. It's just so entertaining to me.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Do you have a favorite Tally Hall song?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so are we counting like the solo projects and spin-offs or just Tally Hall?
Let's count everything and make it
Okay.
really hard.
Yes, that is a very broad question, but of course, with all the options, you I could name so many, but I feel like I should go with some of the more overlooked things. So I really like um Out in the Twilight a lot, which
Yes.
I,
Yes.
I
Yes.
really I got into that when I got the CD of Good and Evil. So I have some like positive emotions connected to that song. And I like Haiku a lot. That one's fun. But as for like the other projects connected to Tally Hall, I'm definitely a big Joe Hawley fan. And I really let's see, I really like Special a lot. That's really good. And Aristotle's Denial, because it kind of, featuring Kojim Dip kind of gives it a whole new vibe.
Yeah. Yeah. I had listened to I had listened to like Hawaii Part 2 first. And
Yes.
then I had listened to like some songs off of Good and Evil, but I had actually listened through I want to say I listened through Joe Holly before the rest of Tally Hall. It's kind of fuzzy. I at least know that I listened to Bahamian Rhapsody first,
Oh,
but
that's great.
oh yeah, but that was kind of like overall when I had first listened to like Tally Hall and Associated Project, it was becoming such like a positive association, and so I feel like Joe Holly songs are definitely underrated and
Yes.
also special in my opinion.
Yeah. Those songs definitely hold a special place in my heart.
Special,
Pun not intended, but
special.
yeah.
So the topic we're talking about today is the creativity of Tally Hall, and I mean I think it's that's already been sort of vaguely touched on, but what are some like thoughts that you have in regards to that too? Like
So I think it's worth mentioning that it's once in a blue moon that you get a band where every single person is both incredible musically and lyrically. And I feel like Tally Hall is a very great example of a band where all of them are just fantastic songwriters. So I feel like in this day and age, it can be kind of hard to make original music just because music is been around for so long, which is, as a musician, that's something that I have faced as an issue before is how do I make a song that hasn't been done before? How do I not just rip off another artist? And it's not to say that Tally Hall doesn't sound like anyone else, but they certainly can. No one sounds exactly like Tally Hall. You can always say like they're kind of like the Beatles or Weezer or any of them, but they are different too. And they're just so creative.
I feel like a lot of how they've just, especially in the case of Marvin's, experimented with just like so many genres, it feels like too,
Yes.
and been able to play with it, where that part of it is like, it's hard to like kind of pinpoint another album that sounds like that, especially.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely like exactly how I feel, and that has inspired me in countless ways to, you know, try every genre that I can try and try everything that I never thought I would ever try. And
Yeah.
because, like, if you listen to the rest of the Tally Hall discography, you wouldn't think a song like Be Born would exist. And I know that one's often hated on, but it's personally, it's one of my favorites, I guess. But I could say that about pretty much any of their songs.
For
But
real.
uh, yeah, it's just you don't often find a band that doesn't stick to one style, and they definitely don't stick to one style. But you know, they do it in a way where they can both like experiment and flow throughout any style they want to try, but also they never lose that heart and soul of Tally Hall.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree with that. I wanted to jump back to Be Born though. I feel like Be Born needs more appreciation in general, and I feel like a lot of people do get kind of like put off by the sound of it, sort of. But I think that part, like that song definitely has a lot of creativity in it. So I was just curious like what your thoughts are on Be Born.
I Yes, I have pretty strong thoughts because I remember the day that I listened all the way through Marvin's, and that was one of the songs that particularly stuck out to me. It was just totally different than the rest. So, I'm listening through and you've got like Welcome to Tally Hall, and it's like, this is great. This is all fun. And you've got some that are a little different, but then you get to Be Born, and it's like, wait a minute, this something doesn't sound exactly the same. And it just stuck with me. I had to re listen to it. And I still find myself re listening to it and forgetting how great it is. And then I listen to it again, and it's just, it speaks to me.
Yeah. I just think like there's like a lot of clever wordplay in it too, but I think
Yes.
it's just something very unique about it too, of just like, a dad cheering on his son who is yet to be born, like,
Yeah.
come do it, come see the world. Like, I don't know. Like I think a lot of themes in there are a lot of like overlapping themes and feelings in kind of Tally Hall's music, and I think just like being joyful about life is definitely one of them in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then I feel like there's another like interesting aspect of the creativity of Tally Hall when it does come to like they released Good and Evil, which some people say kind of sounds the same, but I would argue there's a lot of creativity going into that too. But kind of from that vantage point, then when all of these different members kind of have gone off and done their own different things, like what do you think that kind of speaks to, like just the creativity of all of these different individual people of Tally Hall?
It totally, yeah. I mean, if they can all collectively make two incredible albums, if in my opinion, um, and these solo projects that sometimes are overlooked, such as like Andrew Horowitz's solo stuff. Um,
Sketches.
Sketches is great. Um, and people will immediately go to like Hawaii Part Two, but all of the all of the solo stuff that's been done, in my opinion, is still extremely talented and very well done. So it does really just speak to the creativity of each one of the members.
Yeah. I also have been like it had been a while since I listened to Not a Trampoline, so I was re-listening to that a bit recently. I'm like, this is fun too.
Yeah, it makes me happy to see that it's kind of coming back into relevance because I didn't listen to it much at first, and then when I did, I was pleasantly surprised.
Oh yeah. I also feel like Shia LaBeouf live, like even though it's not a trampoline, like that's something where it's just beautiful it exists.
Yes, I'm so glad we live in a world with Shia LaBeouf being a cannibal.
Yeah, yeah. Cannibal reference, good and evil
Oh
reference.
my gosh, the
Can't believe
layers.
it. I know, right? Um, yeah, like what do you think are like if you want to like talk about the solo albums a bit more for like a minute, what do you think for like each one some different like creative and like unique aspects that jump out from each album?
Yeah, so like I feel like with Joe Holly, it's kind of like if you take some of the Tally Hall songs and put them through a more experimental lens, and I think that that's really cool because it's almost just taking that, Fabulous style, if you could call it that, and taking it even further. It's kind of like this is a weird way to put it, but it's almost like the Be Born out of the solo albums because it doesn't stick with just the same theme as everything else. It where Not a Trampoline might go to a more pop oriented direction, which there's nothing wrong with. Joe Holly tries to kind of harness that experimental nature of Marvin's and things like that. So it's really cool. But to speak to the creativity of Not a Trampoline, it seems like it's often, at least in my experience, overlooked as just a straightforward pop album. But it's far from that. Even though it's more pop oriented, it's still got that Tally Hall, you know, heart and soul, like I was talking about before. And you know, Perfect is great, and uh, I'm Gonna Win, awesome song.
Oh yeah.
And those are like the big two, but there's so many good ones like Old Bike. It's great. The Rendezvous is great.
I also feel like Flamingo and In Memoriam you would not hear on a pop album.
That's true. Exactly. Yeah, it's like it's just a good album though. It makes you feel good, or at least it makes me feel good.
No, I feel that too.
Yeah. And all of Andrew's stuff I just think is wonderful, and it's kind of like a hidden gem, and I keep going back to it whenever I feel like I've listened to everything because whether it be Edu or it be his stuff under Andrew Horowitz, like Etudes and stuff like that, it's really beautiful is the way to describe it, and sometimes fever dream esque, but in a good way. And Mr. F, awesome. That's all I can say about that. That's a really cool project. And then there's Zubin. Gotta love Zubin. That's the end of that.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. There's the Tally All Dot Club, like there's the whole archive, like internet
Yes.
archive if you've seen it. And they'll have folders for the different members, and one of my favorite gags is like, you can navigate to all these folders and see stuff. Like, okay, here's some like behind the scenes things from Joe Holly. You got Rob, you've got Ross under Mr. F, you've got Rob, you've got Andrew, and then when you open the Zubin folder, it's just a picture of Zubin, and that is everything in the Zubin folder.
Yeah. I really would love it if Zubin did more because he's great. And anytime he has his moment to shine in the spotlight, he just did a great job. For example, Two Love, I know it's a funny song, but it really, that's another one that when I first listened to Marvin's, it kind of stood out to me because it was like everything was more, I wouldn't say pop rock oriented, but a softer style, I guess. And when like the distorted guitar intro started, it was almost like Led Zeppelin-esque. And I was like, whoa, what is this? And then they started singing about Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen. And I'm like, what am I listening to right now? So it definitely made me want to keep listening.
The first time I listened to it, I forgot who Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen were, and I was just very confused. And then I came back to, I'm like, oh, I get it now. This is funny.
Yeah. I Funny story about that song. This is so random, but I guess it must have been last year. I was in this kind of cover band, I guess. It wasn't of just one band, but we just covered songs. And um I found out that our bassist was actually a Tally Hall fan. I was like, oh, that's cool. We should play a song. So we're talking about what song to play, and I don't know why, but we decided to do To Wove. So living, in Maine as I do, there aren't many Tally Hall fans out here that would recognize that song. But to make it even weirder, we had to drive like 3 hours away to the middle of the woods pretty much. And we're set out there with a generator, and we're on a trailer of a truck, and we're performing for all these older people. And I just remember my grandparents looking at me confused when I'm singing in Mary Kate and Ashley. And they're like, "What? Did you write this song?" And I'm like, "No." So that's just a funny memory about that song.
Yeah, that's one where I'll like if I'm playing it to someone who just has no idea what Tally Hall is and I can't gauge if they would know who Mary Kate and Ashley are, I'm like, this is a song about the Olsen twins. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
I love in that song, or the story about when they got chances to tell it to the one of the Olsen sisters. Have you've heard that when I think it's in one of the Borologs, they're on a radio show, and one of them brings up that they saw either Mary Kate or Ashley, and like their mom was trying to sing it to them. I just love the idea of, I think it was Rob, just like being in a mall or like a food court and his mom just trying to sing it to one of the twins. That's just like the image of that is hilarious to me.
Yeah. But yeah, but that's cool though. Have you ever had the chance of like covering other Tally Hall songs, either live or just like for
Um,
funsies? I don't know.
I love to just play them, in my bedroom or to my friends, but I have a couple of short stories about performing them, and I think they should prove to be pretty interesting. There was let's see, there was been multiple times at open mics at old Grange halls and stuff like that around, um where a bunch of, people in their 60s and 70s go up with an acoustic guitar and play, Bob Dylan or whoever. And I decided, you know what? They're playing great songs, but I'm going to introduce them to a new generation of music. So I've played Hymn for a Scarecrow for a crowd of, 60 and 70-year-old people in the woods pretty much. And that was really fun. And I did Taken for a Ride, an acoustic version of that, which I thought was pretty good. And let's see, not Tally Hall, but I've done some Will Wood stuff at open mics as well, which they've usually liked it. They I think the best response I've gotten at an open mic for playing Tally Hall was saying that one of them said it sounded like They Might Be Giants, and I was like, "You get it, yeah,
Oh
you
yeah.
know." But I've done that, and the most interesting time I've ever covered a Tally Hall song had to be in a bathroom with Supper Toad. Um, I think that there's a video of this somewhere, but it was a public bathroom. I don't know where, but um, it was very echoey, and I had an acoustic guitar with me, and I was like, let's just go in the bathroom and play some songs because why not, And so it's, like 10 p.m. in this bathroom, and we're playing Welcome to Tally Hall, and it's echoing, and it's like if someone walks in here, they're gonna be so confused, but the acoustics are great. So that was fun. So yeah, and I brought up Special earlier. That one's just fun to play. It's kind of cathartic.
Yeah. How do you feel like when it comes to just like you've talked about, you've looked into a bunch of different Tally Hall songs and then also just been playing different ones. How do you feel like just the experience of like seeing this creativity of Tally Hall has directly impacted your music?
It's definitely, I might have brought this up briefly before, but I can definitely expand on this, that the idea that they don't just tie themselves to one genre of music and roll with that has definitely impacted my music very strongly. And I just love the idea that you could be listening to any music, including mine, and one song sounds like a folk song where, it could have been written years and years ago. And then the next song is like hip hop, you know? It's just I love the idea of that. And it's so creative to me because a lot of bands wouldn't dare to switch up their style even if they were bored of it. And it's so inspiring to me that they are willing to do that. And that has very strongly impacted the way I make my music.
Yeah, I've listened through Cattywampus, your
Oh
album
yeah.
a bit ago, and that was definitely the vibes. It was like, it's all Talking Kote, but it's like there is no expectations going in as to what genre might be next.
Yeah, exactly. And it also uh the way that they can be funny in 1 minute and then serious in next also strongly impacted my music. And I love the idea of that because I don't want everything I make to be happy and I don't want all of it to be sad or angry, you know? And I don't know how my music's going to be interpreted because once it's out there, it's out there. But
Right.
if I write a song, such as a song I wrote called A Song for My Kazoo, it's obviously
Kazoos!
it's a funny song and it's about kazoos, but you know, I do love kazoos, that is a fact. And yet on that same album, I can make a song that's emotional and about like true events or just came from like a deep place in my heart. And the way that Tally Hall seems to make music definitely seems to reflect that to me. And that has inspired me beyond words.
Yeah, you don't have to be trapped into one thing or feel like you just have to be one thing.
Yeah, exactly. It makes me happy.
That's awesome. Yeah, and then like moving forward, I'm going to take the grand assumption that you are still working on composing music and making more things. Like, what are some things that you feel like you've learned on kind of this music journey so far and ways that you're wanting to like grow moving forward?
Yeah. So as I grow as a musician, so does my taste in other musicians. But that doesn't mean that I'm losing my love of Tally Hall. And they continue to influence me to this day. So as I've been writing recently, I've been doing some more experimental stuff, I guess you could say. As of recording this a couple days ago, I released a single, and it's more psychedelic rock oriented, which is different than most of the things I've ever touched on, most of the genres. And that was inspired by bands such as King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Um, but pretty soon, you know, this is just a little plug for myself, I guess. I'm gonna be releasing an EP that is kind of almost the most experimental thing I've done, but it draws heavy inspiration from Joe Hawley in particular, with some of the synthier elements and some of the hip hop elements. But as I've, you know, I guess you could say as I've grown as a musician and my taste has grown, I find myself going back to some of my original inspirations, such as Tally Hall. And that has really proved to be helpful in my writing process. Where last year was trying to get everything out, this year is trying to get everything in and, you know, write from a more inspired point of view. And I guess what I mean by that is last year I released something every month of the year. So there was 12 releases last year and it was a lot. It was kind of just make whatever you can do and throw it out there and hope people like it. Um, but this year I'm gonna try and go back to the basics and worry more about quality over quantity. And I guess you could say, you know, Tally Hall's pretty good at that. Two albums and they're both great, but you know,
I know the fandom's always like, but maybe one day more quantity. I don't know.
I hope so. I
Guess we'll
mean,
just.
there is that video of Rob playing Greener,
I
you know,
know.
pretty
Why did he
exciting.
do that? Why
Who
did he
knows?
do that? That we don't know. They're just, I think he was just probably laughing while posting it.
Yeah,
No. Like that
yeah.
one Zubin Spotify Wrapped.
Oh, yeah, that. Oh my gosh, I remember talking to my friends about that. That was, yeah, that was something.
But it is cool to see, like, just kind of, there's been this whole generation of fans who've been going on and they've been creating their own things, like in your case too. Like, it's not just like fans of Tally Hall keep making Tally Hall stuff or something. Like, moving on and being inspired and moving forward. And then I think it's been cool to see, like, more recently a lot more Tally Hall members being open of just things that they are continuing to do, even if it's not tied to Tally Hall. Like, it's just exciting to see just kind of the creativity has not stopped.
Yes. And yeah, I totally agree. It's great to see that they're still out there and doing their thing, living their
Yeah.
best lives.
Oh, yeah.
I guess I should just say that Tally Hall isn't for everyone, but for those who give it a chance, they are so wonderfully creative and wacky and fun. And that spark is never going to die, no matter how long they're on hiatus.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, where can people find you, find your music if they want to get some updates or learn more?
Yeah,
That's
so you can find me under Talking Kote on YouTube, on let's see, Instagram, on Spotify. I just got on Spotify, so that's pretty cool. But I would prefer it if you guys check me out on Bandcamp because you can buy my stuff there and then I get money.
yippee.
Um, which is how, yep, that's how it works, and I like that. But yeah, you can find me on YouTube. I do some funny videos and sketches and stuff on there. And then there's my topic channel, which I know is probably going to get hacked soon, so that's fun. But if you go on there, I've got all my albums and everything uploaded, so check me out if you'd like. If you like any of the music we talked about today, I hope you give me a chance because I try to be like them.
Oh. I had seen, like, you had the one of the songs from Cattywampus. You had a music video for
Yes.
a little bit ago. And some of the bizarreness of the video does give me Tally Hall vibes. I will say that.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me on Tally Talks. It's been
Yes.
fun talking with you, and I wish you the best of luck in all of your musical endeavors.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you for listening to Tally Talks. As always, a huge thank you to Opal the Thing for supporting Tally Talks on Patreon. Thanks to the Patreon, a transcript and captions of the first Tally Talks episode is coming soon. Supporting on Patreon helps make that possible. Check out the Patreon link in the description to learn more. You can also find a charity fundraiser link in the description, where if you donate, I will give you a shout out in an upcoming episode or video. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you next after the Edu tour in LA. Now be sure to have a good day by Tally Hall.